Do you know how GPS actually works? It's pretty cool, and I'm gonna tell you all about it in this video. There are three main parts to a GPS system: the satellites, the receivers, and the tracking algorithms. You probably already knew that part. What you might not have known is that there are actually two different types of GPS satellites. The older ones are the low Earth orbit or LEO satellites. There are 24 of them, and they orbit around 12,000 miles above the Earth's surface. But newer GPS satellites are actually medium Earth orbit or MEO satellites. And these orbit about 20,000 miles above the Earth's surface. The higher orbit means that these satellites do need to be replaced as often as the lower orbit ones. Now these satellites don't contain any moving parts. They're just big hunks of metal with a clock and an antenna sticking up. They send out radio signals at a very specific frequency, which allows the receiver to know that the signal is coming from a GPS satellite. These signals are then picked up by the receiver, which is usually a smartphone, but could also be a standalone GPS device or even a website that wants to track your location. For advertising purposes, the receiver uses the signal to calculate its exact location. But how does that even work? Well, the tracking algorithm uses the time it takes for the signal to arrive at the receiver to calculate the distance between the satellite and the receiver. If the algorithm knows the exact location of the satellite and the time it takes for the signal to arrive, then it can calculate how far away the satellite is. Once it has this information for different satellites, it can pinpoint the exact location of the receiver down to the nearest several feet. This is how GPS actually works. This is one of the reasons why GPS is so accurate. There are so many satellites orbiting the Earth that there is almost always at least one within line of sight of any given receiver. Now some of you clever clogs might be thinking, if the GPS satellite is sending out a signal at the speed of light, then the time it takes for the signal to reach the receiver is negligible. The distance would be calculated more accurately if we didn't account for the time it took for the signal to travel. But this isn't actually the case because the signals from these satellites aren't actually sent at the speed of light. They're sent at about 2/3 the speed of light. This is done for a very specific reason: by slowing the signal down. The clocks on the satellite and the receiver can be synchronized. If the signals were sent at the speed of light, there would be no way for the receiver to know if the clock on the satellite was ahead or behind its own clock. This would result in an inaccurate location being reported by the GPS. So next time you're using a GPS, remember that it's not magic, it's science. Oh, no, wait, it is magic. Never mind.